Um, right. So we're back with another episode of 90s Noise, and we've got a special guest. We've got Amy here. Amy, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. So, my name is Amy Lewis, and I am the host of the Pop Culture Retrospective podcast, which I started in May of 2020 as a way to sort of do something positive with some grief I experienced by losing my sister unexpectedly and very tragically in 2019. So she and I grew up together, of course, in the 80s and 90s. So I decided that I wanted to kind of take a look back at the stuff that we were into as kids, whether it was movies, TV, books, anything like that, and kind of research it and discuss it. So yeah, so the pop culture retrospective is all about the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. It's been about 3 years almost, and I've been really enjoying it. It's been a pretty amazing experience that I was not expecting at all, but it's been um, just so much fun, and I've met so many great people, and it's really just nice to do something happy and productive with something that was, very difficult. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And honestly, actually, I've kind of before we jump into the uh talking about the TV shows for today, you even got some gear on from 90s
Yes,
Con.
Woo!
Tell us a little bit about that. How was your
I do
experience
indeed.
there?
Yes. My wife is not happy that I have another baseball cap. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Unfortunately, I found out about it kind of late, which I'm super bummed about. I don't know how this totally like flew under my radar because I'm very aware of things like this. So yeah, EastCon was in Hartford, Connecticut, which is actually perfect because my brother-in-law was able to go for the last day. So it's very, 90s focused. It's very celebrity focused. So if you're interested in meeting celebrities and getting their autograph or getting a, selfie with them, you can do that. Or you can opt to do like a photo op with a professional photographer and get pictures taken with celebrities that way too. Or you can do what I did, which was sit in on a bunch of different panels. Each day they
Mm.
had something going on with panels. So so I sat in on panels for Clueless. So I got to see Alicia Silverstone,
Oh my
talk about,
gosh.
playing Cher, and yeah, and the other main cast was all there too, except for for Brittany Murphy. Unfortunately, wasn't there, but they talked about her. Also sat in on the Wonder Years panel and also the boy bands panel, which I was pretty thrilled about because
Mm.
when I was a teenager, I was a huge, huge fan of NSYNC. I saw them in concert like 3 or 4 times. I think I've seen Justin Timberlake in concert. So Joey Fatone and Chris Kirkpatrick were both there, so it was really fun to see them because they're both very charismatic and hilarious. And I just grew up adoring that whole group, so I was really psyched to go to that. So I just kind of focused on the panels and checking out some of the vendors and stuff like that. But it was really great, fun atmosphere with a bunch of 90s nerds like myself, and people were dressed up, and a lot of people were dressed up as Cher from Clueless. A lot of women were dressed up like her, and just people in different costumes. It was just a really fun experience. I really hope to go back next year. I think the plan, I think, is that I'll be in Hartford again, which would be very convenient for my needs. So I highly recommend it. I'm probably going to do a recap episode on my podcast, just kind of going through it in a little bit more detail, but it was definitely awesome, and I hope I can go again.
Absolutely. We actually
So
they had right before they did in Hartford this last weekend, they announced their Florida dates, which are going on sale this Saturday. So
nice.
Ashley and I are
Oh,
already
nice.
ready to go and everything, like alarms on our
Yeah.
phones and stuff. So that way we don't miss it for sure. Cause it's over it's
Yeah.
by me in Tampa. So
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's sounds like that's going to be a lot of fun. So I know that I think Melissa Joan Hart is planning on being there, and she was at
Oh,
the 90s
love
con
that.
in Connecticut. So yeah, so everybody said yeah that she was lovely. I think I walked past her. I mean, I kind of did some laps around the when the celebrities are doing autographs. So I think I walked past Mario Lopez about 50 times. So that was just very, very surreal. So I'm not sure. Yeah, not sure who the lineup is yet, but I do know that Melissa Joan Hart said something about it on her Instagram. So
Yeah, I know Danica mentioned that she was like, see you guys in Florida. And then
oh, nice.
it's funny, I was actually talking to Ashley on Friday. The Lawrence brothers were
Oh,
doing an
nice.
Instagram live, and somebody was on it from 90s Con in Hartford, and they were like, "Where are you guys at?" And Matt kind of let slip that Boy Meets World is probably going to be, the cast of Boy Meets World, including him, is
Oh my
probably
gosh.
going to be there.
Oh
So
wow. Nice.
hopefully, hopefully that's
Yeah. Oh,
still
that's
true and everything. So
yeah, that
Yeah.
would be great. Yeah, I did ask Danica a question during their panel, which I was about ready to have a heart attack before which I don't know why, because I'm not like a starstruck person, but for some reason it was just making me feel very nervous for some reason. So I just said, I host a podcast, but I didn't want to get into specifics because I didn't want to make it seem like I was trying to like market my podcast in front of everybody. But I asked like what are some of her favorite behind the scenes moments from the show. So I'll make sure I share that in my upcoming
yeah.
podcast episode.
Cool.
But yeah, she was very, very sweet, very down to earth. Her mom was in the
Aw.
audience, and it was very cute. She seems like she could be the teacher at the school by your house. She just seems very down to
Yeah.
earth and approachable, and yeah, she seemed very nice.
Oh man, I love that.
Same
Yeah,
here. All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get going with this. So, on our episode here, we're gonna be talking the Will and Grace episodes that you suggested, and then we'll also touch
awesome.
on the Sex and the City season 1 episode, and then we'll save
Okay,
season 2 and Friends for your podcast. So,
sounds like a
um,
plan.
all right. So okay, let's get started here.
Sure.
So for so the first episode, that part 1, what was that name again? For that
Yes,
episode?
I think it's called Fagmalian. Um, trying to remember what the continuation of the title is. It's escaping me at the moment, but yes.
Yeah.
Which is, based off of Pygmalion, which is the My Fair Lady musical.
Yes.
So yeah. So I really
Okay.
like this. Yeah. I mean, any episode of Will and Grace is fantastic. I mean, I watched that when it was on, and I own every DVD season, which now is a pain in the butt. So it's nice that you can see it on Amazon, because it's amazing how inconvenient that's become. It's like, oh God, I really don't feel like
No.
getting out the huge
Mm-hmm.
binder that we have now of all of our DVDs and shoving that in the DVD player. That just requires too much work. But now that it's on Amazon, it's very convenient.
Yeah, and you
Not
don't have
just
to worry about it skipping either, because that always seems to happen. Like you're in the middle of an episode and then that's it. You
Yes,
can't finish it.
or like
right.
you're done with that disc and you have to get up and change the discs to
Mm-hmm.
continue, and you're just,
Right.
oh my gosh,
Yes. Right.
completely
And
agree,
it never
complete.
says, yeah, and on DVDs, it never, especially if it's a TV season, it never has the like what episodes are on the disc
Mm.
either. It's like you just have to guess. So it's like, oh, it's episode 8. That could
Oh
either be disc 1 or disc 2. God, which one is it? Oh, I put in the wrong one. Great. This is
Yeah.
gonna take like 10 seconds out of my life that I'm never gonna get back.
my
So
God.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so in the Fagmalian part 1. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask what
So
made you choose this episode in particular? Like what stands out most about this one?
I just like the whole concept of Jack and Will taking another individual who just came out of the closet, kind of I think that the title is Fagmalian gay it forward, I want to say something like that. So they take him under his wing and try to help him sort of acclimate to gay life in New York. So I just think their approach with him is pretty hysterical and certainly stereotypical too, but I don't find that offensive in any means. I find it hilarious and really entertaining, and I think there's reason why that show won a lot of Emmys and stuff, because it's just executed so well. And I just what they do with him is um, just hilarious. They just really do to kind of turn him around and kind of make him go from an ugly duckling to she's the guy is Karen's nephew in the show, kind of make him go from sort of like a kind of, I don't know, kind of a couch potato, kind of overgrown hair guy into fit, attractive, more confident in himself person, which is pretty cool. So
does it
yeah, they have his
continue
haircut.
into part 2 with more of Barry and that transformation? Is that where it keeps going with that? Okay.
Yeah, they take him to get his hair cut, and they go to kind of culminating like big event where he sort of presents himself, and he just looks amazing. And he was actually a guest star on Sex and the City at one point too.
Oh,
I
cool.
can't remember the actor's name. Yeah. So, and he certainly looks nothing like the nerdy Barry in real life. Um, but yeah, and Will kind of goes from like not wanting to date him because he's kind of a little
Mm-hmm.
scruffy, and then when he kind of makes his transformation, then all of a sudden Will kind of does want to date him, but he's interested in kind of getting out there and playing the field because he's just newly out and wants to experience sort of gay life in New York, which is certainly a great place to live for that. So it's yeah, just a great fun episode. And any scene involving Jack is going to be hilarious because
I
Sean
was
Hayes
gonna
is
say,
just
yeah,
such a
he is definitely my favorite character from the show. I recall watching the show a lot growing up myself. And I just always
yeah.
gravitated towards him. I don't know, like Sean is just a brilliant actor, and every scene that he's in, he
Mhm.
sort of almost steals the spotlight. And he's just,
Yeah.
yeah, I've always loved him the most.
Yeah, he is an American treasure. Let's just, I'm just gonna say it. So yeah, he is a gift, and we are lucky to be the recipient. So yeah, I just any two-parters on Will and Grace is always a lot of fun. So
And I did like also the Grace storyline too, in
Mhm.
that to where number one, I guess for me, I watched some episodes here and there growing up. My mom enjoyed the show, so I'd sometimes see it when she'd be watching, but it wasn't one while it was airing that I actually watched um a lot or anything. But with even Deborah Messing's character's storyline too on that one, it was interesting because she's like had just moved to Brooklyn, and that
Yeah,
I don't know New York well enough to know like the difference, and it sounds kind of almost like in a sense for my area, like okay, living in St. Pete, having to go across the bridge to Tampa, like it's such a chore and everything, but even
yeah,
though it's not far, it still feels far. And then I don't know, Ashley knows this because I'm a huge animal lover, but then like the whole little cat scene where the neighbors like brings the cat and is like, here, I brought you a gift to cats and everything. I was like, okay, this is
yeah,
this is pretty interesting.
yeah,
But I really enjoyed that episode for sure. Like that was a very enjoyable episode, and have to finish that continuation and make sure to I honestly I'm interested in like going back now and rewatching like all of Will and Grace. Even
yeah.
just with these two episodes, like sitting down and watching them, I'm like, why haven't I watched this before?
Right, right. Yeah, I think Will and Grace is it's one of those shows that it's sort of like growing up. I feel like there's always sort of those movies that you have that are like your comfort movies, and then there's those shows that are like your comfort shows. And I would say Will and Grace is definitely that for me. So I can certainly remember watching it when it was on and making sure to be available. I think it was on, must see TV like Thursday night thing. And then being a young adult and watching that all the time while I was cleaning or whatever. It's just something that most of the episodes are pretty decent. Even like a not so even not some of the episodes that maybe aren't the best are still really funny and worth watching. And some shows don't really stand the test of time very well, and you go back and it just doesn't hold up. But I think Will and Grace certainly holds up, and the original airing of the show, I mean, that was almost like 15 to 20 years ago, I think, at this point when it went off the air, and it still is funny, and the jokes are still funny. And yeah, maybe some of the celebrities and stuff aren't as relevant anymore, but still it's just a great all around uplifting great on a rainy day, sick day, home from work or school or whatever. It's just a lot of fun and fun to watch. And that's kind of my style. It's like if I'm going to watch something, I want to laugh or I want to learn something.
Right.
And that's, the show that does that for me is it doesn't stress me out. Nothing horrible happens. It's just lighthearted and just classic quality sitcom.
Yeah,
So,
you can't go wrong with shows like that. But I'm
no.
curious as to, do you know why you were drawn to the show when it started? Like, was there something in particular where you're like, made you tune into it, or was it just something you happened upon? Do you remember?
I think there's probably a couple of things. I think one, I've always been a big fan of anything sort of comedic, funny related. My parents liked stand-up and like sitcom funny shows when I was
Mm.
growing up. So I think I was drawn to that for that reason. And I think at the time it was pretty groundbreaking to have two gay male characters on television. And for me growing up gay, but not coming out until like after college, which is like so late in life now compared to kids these days. I think it was all just comforting to know that there's people on TV and it's not a big deal and they're living normal lives and they're normal people and successful, and so being able to relate to that was pretty profound and pretty amazing because there really was no characters like that on TV, especially not on non-cable TV, because I pretty much have not had cables since I was like 10. So to be able to watch, some diversity on TV,
Mhm.
in prime time, TV was pretty amazing, and having it be a good show at that too, not having it be some sad, there's so much that you can watch about being gay that's all really sad and being bullied and, these things happen and we
Mhm.
need to talk about it. But it's also nice to just watch something that's funny and lighthearted, because it's not like, being gay isn't horrible every 2 seconds. There's a lot of, just normal stuff, having a job and hanging out with your friends and, traveling and helping people who just came out of the closet, get acclimated. That's seeing that was just pretty comforting as
Right.
a young adult, kind of struggling with that too. So yeah. So yeah,
I didn't know who was
it's good
gonna
stuff.
jump in. I never know.
You're
Yeah, yeah, me too. I try not to cut people
Um,
off, and then there's the
I
delays
know.
too. So it's
Yeah, I
tricky.
remember before Will and Grace came out, it was Ellen that had her show, and I do remember like
Yeah.
watching that and stuff. So I know that I'm pretty sure like that show helped Will and Grace sort of come to be, almost to make it where it was okay to have that show. And then even after the huge success of Will and Grace, like it was very groundbreaking for shows like Modern Family and Glee and things like that, where they were including the more diverse characters of having those gay couples and everything, which, like you said before, wasn't that commonplace in a lot of just regular sitcoms that were airing on TV.
Yeah. And certainly not a main character. And if
Mm-hmm.
there was like maybe a subtlety with a character, and the the side story was probably not that big of a focus on the show, or was kind of a depressing thing, or this is just like making it quote unquote normal, which is kind of not the best word to use at this point, but just kind of putting it on people, in people's homes and in their living rooms. It's like, yeah, gay gay people are funny, and gay people can be sad, and gay people have jobs, and I think it helped open people's eyes a little bit of just like just normalcy. And Sean Hayes and Megan
Mm-hmm.
Mullally, I mean, come on, if you don't
Oh,
like those
oh my
two,
gosh,
then
yes.
yeah, if you can't watch those two on TV, then I guess you must like live under a rock or something, because they are just incredible. Like, I don't, if you don't like Sean Hayes and you don't like Megan Mullally, then I guess we can't be friends,
Right.
'cause
Yeah. Honestly, I would have been
because
fine with
you're an idiot.
watching the show with just them two, because
yeah.
I don't know. I
Right.
mean, I just
Totally.
didn't really care for Grace that much. Like after a while, she just kind of gets on your nerves. Like she's just kind of a little bit annoying and dramatic. And that's why I'm like, okay, I could be fine
Yeah.
with Sean and Megan just doing their own thing. And sometimes Will could come in and have his parts, but I would be fine if Grace wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah. She has some kind of like pesky neighbor qualities at times too, and just nosy and yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that episode. Like, so I watched it in the order that you had provided and everything. And so it was like, okay, I can dig this. I can keep watching this. And because sometimes we Ashley grins and bears it on some things that I send her to watch and everything. But it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, yeah, this is definitely something that have it already planned to be watching, like starting from the beginning and go back through and everything. And then the next episode that you provided, I was dying laughing for that other episode.
It's a classic. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like it is the classic like scenario of okay, spouses and the spouse sees an ex and then come and oh well let's all hang out and all this kind of stuff. And so it's you're wondering whether it's gonna be the awkward and you're hoping it's not, but then you're kind of also just, well, they've been with my spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, whichever way it is and everything. But then to throw the uh the curveball in there
Yes. Major
when
curveball.
I was like, oh my gosh. And then just Grace being so pissed.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I guess I'm assuming that there were previous episodes um regarding like her
Yeah.
trying to get Will to get with her and everything, but
Yep. Yeah, there's some
even
really good episodes with that, which I can get into in a second. But
yeah, that I was just like I loved how the husband's like, you're more upset that Will got with her than I had been with her.
yeah,
And so that just cracked me up. I literally was while I was watching, I was just dying laughing the
yeah,
majority of that episode.
That episode was just messy. Like it
yeah,
was very messy. It was all over the place, super dramatic. And was confused as to why the ex was even invited. Like what was she needing to be there for? Like why was that even
yeah,
necessary? Like it just made no sense at all.
I I
yeah,
feel I feel like the husband had invited almost kind of like trying to I think he wanted Grace to be jealous and like like jealous over him and like trying to like fight for his attention and stuff like that. That's kind of how it seemed with like how upset he was
yeah,
about Grace being more pissed about Will having gotten with her than the husband. So I don't know. I think it was kind of trying to build his own ego, the husband's ego.
yeah. I could see that. Yeah, so the episode is called Last X to Brooklyn. And it's yeah, the kind of the backstory of Will and Grace is kind of like long story short, is that Will and Grace were actually a couple at one point when they were in college, and there's some great flashback episodes with like the kind of stereotypical 80s stuff when they're in college, which is just hilarious, which I strongly suggest watching. So they were a couple for a brief period of time. And Grace was, really, really in love with Will, and I think would have married him right away and all this stuff. Um, and Will, I mean, cares about her too. And it kind of comes down to like they're gonna, try to be like intimate, but um, Will kind of avoids it eh, very strongly because he knows that he's gay in his heart. But has a, feels bad telling that to Grace. And so I think she sort of, as the show goes on the whole time, there's this sort of undertone of, that she really is in love with him, and, it's a bummer that he's gay and stuff like that. So I think that kind of played out in that episode that, out of, Will's only ever had sex with one woman, and out of all people, how could it not have been Grace? And so I think that's why she's just so unbelievably upset, because how could it, out of all people, they were like a couple and she loves them so much, how could she not have been the one? So there's certainly a lot of emotion in that.
So
Go ahead.
do her and Harry, I don't remember what his character's name was. They don't end up together,
It's
right?
Leo.
Leo. They're not together in the end, right?
In the end, I don't, at the very end of the show, like the show's run, I don't think so.
Okay. That just seemed like a
I don't think
toxic
so. But I want to,
relationship. I'm like, please just separate.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He ends up, spoiler alert, ends up like cheating on her when he's doing Doctors Without Borders and stuff like that.
Gosh.
So, yeah, it gets complicated, for sure.
Hmm.
But but Harry Connick Jr. certainly plays a very like awkward, kind of annoying husband role in that show, which was kind of unexpected because I'm just used to hearing him on the When Harry Met Sally soundtrack. So to see him
Oh my
acting was
gosh,
kind of
that was him.
quite hysterical. Yeah,
That
yeah,
was it. I didn't. That didn't click
yeah.
at
He's a
all.
musician mostly. Yeah, I don't know where the
Mm-hmm.
random acting
Acting
stuff
came in.
comes in, but
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
know. I didn't really feel him in that role. He was very awkward. Like I don't know, it just didn't seem like they had a good connection or something. He just seemed off in it. But I don't know if
yeah,
it was one of his earlier acting roles, so maybe he just wasn't really sure what to do. I'm not sure on that, but yeah, I I just didn't. He should stick to
yeah,
him.
yeah. Well, in an earlier season, Deborah Messing of Grace dates a character played by Woody Harrelson.
Oh,
And that was,
What?
yeah,
oh, I
those
like
are some
that.
great episodes too. Yeah, and he's kind of like a hippie in the show, and which is not hard for him to do.
No.
And
No.
they're a cute couple. Yeah, they make a cute couple, but yeah, I don't think they end up staying together. And then Diane, the ex-girlfriend of Leo, is played by Mira Sorvino, and she does I think just a great job um, in her role, playing the ex-girlfriend, which
Mhm.
people who hang out with exes, I always found that like I'm just not one of those people. And I know people are like, oh, I'm getting married and my like ex-boyfriend's gonna be there. It's like that
No.
is really weird.
No,
I am
no,
not.
no, no, no.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna
yeah.
ask
It's
that.
like
Just
it's good to be
have
on.
you guys like, are you people that hang out with your exes? Are you gonna get super crazy and
Never.
jealous if that person didn't sleep with you but slept with your ex, or however that story went? Like, I just mean like, no.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. I definitely don't. I think that's the most awkward thing in the world. It's like if you've all known the same person like intimately, no. I mean, I
Yeah.
like to be on like good terms with people. I would, it's always hard to be on like horrible terms with, somebody that was a part of your life. So I try to like be amicable or whatever, but there's literally no reason for me to spend any time with somebody that I dated. I find that very
Yeah.
awkward and
No.
would just, yeah. But yeah, Mira Sorvino just does such a great job, and it turns out that Will slept with her right after Will and Grace broke up, and Will was the only man that's ever really satisfied Diane, if you will, and Leo has a really hard time accepting that, and so then he's then he's upset now too, because it's like, oh my God, I'm not able to do what I thought I could do. And, my wife doesn't really care that Diane was my ex-girlfriend. She just cares that, Will slept with Diane. So yeah, the layers, it's an onion. That episode is just like it's an onion. The
Mhm.
layers are just,
Yep.
and then Karen and Jack are there, and there's a little
A
dog that,
little dog.
A
It's so
little dog.
Chompers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
What was it? The Earl of Puppydom?
cute.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So who I think who has an accident and a very but they just add so much comic relief to the tension that's in the room, with Will and Grace and Leo and Diane. They just help kind of just break up the tension with their funny jokes, and it's, yeah, it's a great like classic, yeah, tension like dinner scene in a sitcom, which I feel like is pretty standard, because there's always those standard for sitcoms. There's always a like stuck in an elevator episode.
Mhm.
There's always
Yes.
the somebody got hit over their head and doesn't remember anything episode, and then there's the like tension at dinner episode. So,
Yeah.
but not usually involving a gay man and a straight woman, but having intercourse. So yeah, but it was I think it's a uh, classic episode. And I don't think I've watched a ton of stuff that Mira Sorvino is in per se. She's not at the kind of the top of my list of movies I've seen her in, but I thought she kind of added a lot of also kind of awkward, insecure in a good way energy to this episode.
Now, did you watch like the little mini reboot that they did? Was it a couple years ago that they did that?
Yeah, I watched a couple episodes. I struggle with reboots at times because it's like, can we please think of something else? Can we not have any, original ideas or,
Nope.
that show is so great. Why,
Mm-hmm.
you go out while you're on top, kind of like when Michael Jordan kept coming back from like retirement. It's like,
Oh
oh,
my
what? You're 40
gosh.
now. Sorry. Like
Yes.
just don't, like you're amazing. You're the best, one of the best basketball players that ever lived. Please just, don't come back. And I think, same thing with the show, but the episodes I did see were actually pretty funny. And I think it came on at a time where people needed some comic relief because that was sort of
Mm-hmm.
like height of pandemic.
Oh yeah.
So I kind of get it from that angle, but from a like, can we just think of something else, please? I was against it, because we need some new sitcoms for people to get attached to and, so.
That's for sure. We definitely need some new ideas and everything. And you can even take some ideas from previous ones, but put their own spin on it. The reboots are just getting a little out of hand, I think.
They are, yeah. And they're not
Yeah.
really providing you with like anything new. It's like they're almost just redoing the old storylines.
Right.
And it's just, yeah, it just kind of gets boring and
Yeah.
it's not good content anymore.
Right. Yeah, I heard about the Full House reboot and I was like, wow, that could be really interesting. Huh. And I don't think I could even get through one episode. So yeah, when that came out, I think I got through maybe 10 minutes of that Fuller House or whatever. I was like, this is so bad. I can't even, it is painful for me to watch this. I just can't. I can't. And so I think
Really?
I watched one or two episodes and I just could not take it. Yeah.
Oh,
So
I felt like it got better as it went on. I did watch
okay.
everything and it was very cringe, like starting into it, I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is gonna work. But it
Yeah.
did get better. You did kind of start really enjoying the cast and everyone that because they brought back the same dynamics. And so it kind of did feel like you were back as a kid growing up with that Full House again. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know that it got better. So maybe I'll try to suck it up and watch it, but I just could not. It was just, oh my God. Yeah. Because I mean, it's not like it was known for their acting skills or, I don't think they won any Emmys for being
Right.
outstanding writing or outstanding acting, but yeah, that was just
Starting for this one. So going back to kind of a little bit to that reboot, as we were talking about Fuller House and everything, I do definitely understand what you're meaning on that, because I did kind of feel like I was just watching the same show, but instead of it being Danny, Joey, and Jesse, it was DJ, Stephanie, and Kimmy going through the exact same thing. And so
yeah.
that's why I give Ashley props for finishing it. I only got through, I think, like the second season or something on that. And so yeah, the reboots, it's hard for me too on that. I try,
Yeah.
but it's like, why ruin a good thing, like with
Right.
don't ruin that memory I have of that, whatever. uh but it's, I guess, in a sense I understand. I do get it because they're trying to just bring back the same
The nostalgia.
thing. Yeah, but sometimes it's better left untouched.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 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 Agreed. Agreed. Well, I keep thinking, so Candace Cameron Bure now was at 90s Con, and I just kept thinking, and when I listened to my suggestions, because have a lot of really great ideas, is I think that so there was a DJ playing music the whole time the conference was going, the con was
Oh.
going on, just very obviously very 90s music, which was great.
Mm.
And I think that they should set up like a photo op with Candace Cameron Beer there that says DJ Tanner while she like plays music. You know what I mean?
Ooh,
Like,
that
yeah,
would
music DJ Tanner. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Wouldn't want their picture taken with her, with a couple of turntables and yeah.
Heck yeah.
So, because
I'd
I've
go for
seen
that photo
the
op.
meme that went around. It, yeah, really. Well, I saw there's a meme that floated around for a while that had like a picture of her from when she was like 12 and said DJ got us falling in love again, and it was her like when she was a kid standing behind some spinning some records. It was
Oh my gosh.
funny. So yeah, but yeah, sitcoms should just remain. A good show should just remain where it was. Just don't bring it back. But people obviously wanted it to happen, and it ran for a few seasons, so I'm kind of in the minority, I think, of that. But I just, we just need some fresh ideas. Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Oh, you definitely got me sold on Will and Grace and getting back into going back through and rewatching that because, like I said, I was always more of a, I guess, action like person growing up, and so some of those comedies and everything, the sitcoms I sometimes had to like difficulty getting into, but now as an
Yeah.
adult I enjoy it so much more. And maybe because I understand it, like understand the jokes and everything, but definitely I've definitely got that on my list of must watch.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I loved that show when I was watching it, and I haven't seen it since it was airing, but being able to go back and kind of rewatch some of these episodes, I'm like, yeah, I need to go back and rewatch them because it's a very lighthearted show. It's so much comedy, so much genius behind all the writing and the acting that it's a very enjoyable show. You can put on in the background, almost do some stuff. But yeah, I love Will and Grace.
Yeah. Spineless TV in the best way possible, but it is mindful too. I mean, it is like, sending a, great message and great, also had a lot of great cameos by other famous people. There's a fantastic episode with Madonna in it. Matt Damon was in a great episode. Demi
Yeah.
Moore, we just watched the one with Michael Douglas in it where he is just coming out like late in life and kind of tries to hit on Will in a subtle way, and they end up going to a nightclub and dance. It's a great episode. So just an all around great show for sure.
I need you to send me which episode that is because I want to watch that one.
Yeah. It's pretty. There's a lot of innuendos and it's just so good. Yeah.
Oh. Well, we're gonna now transition to our Sex in the City episode,
Yes.
and we're doing one episode on ours and then on our podcast, and then you gotta head over to Amy's to catch the remainder of what we're going to be chatting about. But this episode is what was it called? The 20 something guys?
Yeah, the land of the 20 somethings, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, from season 1.
And this one, I admit, like I didn't have HBO growing up. And so I didn't ever see Sex in the City while I was growing up. But I got a kick out of this one, especially since the 20-something guy that she's interested in was
Timothy.
oh my gosh. Yes.
Oh my gosh. I love seeing him in this. That was hilarious. He's one of my favorite actors.
Well, what was his name again?
It's Timothy. Oh, how do I pronounce
I don't know
his
how
name?
you say his last. It's like Oliphant
It
or
looks
something
so familiar.
Like that. He does. I don't know if you ever
okay.
saw Justified. He's in that TV show, but he's done a ton of movies.
Did you ever watch the
super familiar,
Screams? the Screams.
The Scream movies.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I think I saw the first maybe 2 or 3.
So he was in number 2
Yeah, I think
at the
okay.
college.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yep.
so that like we're going to MegaCon in a couple weeks, and it's got
Oh,
some of the
nice.
Scream cast from the first movie in it. And so just to be like prepared and everything, I've been rewatching all of the Screams. And so so I rewatched Scream 2 and about a week ago. So seeing this was like, oh my gosh, that's him. I was
Yeah.
Oh
uh,
man. Yeah. I wish
Yeah.
he
So
was
he's
gonna
like
be there.
Carrie Bradshaw's love interest in the show. Yeah, it's kind of follows their man, which is pretty comical, and certainly dating my very last boyfriend ever, which was not good, but that's for another time. And I remember like, yeah, the bathroom has like, you know,
Oh
nowhere to dry your hands. There's like no toilet
no.
paper.
I don't know
And
how
that's
anyone lives
exactly
that way.
what
no.
happened with Carrie, which is just, not the stereotype, but yeah, for most of them, it all kind of short situation, because I think all of the women in the show are, I think, supposed to be in their 30s, and I think Samantha jokes about being in her 30s, but I believe she's probably in her early 40s, maybe.
Mm.
But it's just, yeah, how it all kind of plays out is pretty funny, and just going out late and nightclubs and just all that stuff those are all things that just sound horrific to me as well, which is
Oh
not
my
something I want
gosh.
to do. So
I barely wanted
No.
to do that in my 20s, let alone now in my
yeah,
30s. Oh.
Absolutely.
right.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, well, I forgot to mention at the top of the show, because I know you guys what year you're born,
Oh.
and I was born, so that's as a new 40-year-old, that's all, yeah, all things I like, between COVID and like, the fires and getting trampled, which seems to happen a lot, because there's just really no reason to go. And I think these Sex and the City women helped us to, recognize that as well. So
I did find it interesting, of like I said, since I didn't ever really watch it, um, for how she kind of almost was trying to juggle in this episode, at least, Timothy's character, and then what's his name, Big or
Mm,
something.
yes.
mhm.
And so, I mean, obviously, he kind of actually made a good point when in the nightclub he found her, and he was like, "Well, I was able to be here for an hour. I had to wait outside for 30 minutes." Whereas, like, they just got there and walked in. Like, that's such a typical nightclub situation, like the guys having to wait for freaking ever, where the
Hmm.
girls just walk right in because of the guy to girl ratio they always try to do and everything. But
Yeah.
and then like it it was interesting, but like I'm totally like big in that the get there, waited half an hour, spent 20 minutes looking for him, and then it's like, okay, well, hey, I was here, but I gotta
Right.
go now.
Yeah. I'm gonna go take a nap, because this just whole process is making me exhausted. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
So,
kind of where Big sort of starts
so what made you watch Sex and the City?
to kind of make his way into the show.
Are you still
I
there?
definitely would say that's because of my sister. So she, similar to movies, not so much, but yeah, with a lot of TV shows, and then watch together when maybe we were home from. I don't. We didn't have HBO either, but I think she bought the like VHS box set
Oh
at one
gosh.
point of all the episodes, so we would, which I'm sure cost like $200 at the time, which
Yeah.
then we both purchased on DVD later. So I own all seasons of it on DVD. But yeah, she recommended to me, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, I loved the writing of the show, the whole being in New York thing. Grew up watching Sarah Jessica Parker. Grew up watching the woman who played Samantha, whose name is escaping me at the moment, but she was in Mannequin. And so I just yeah. So I just really liked a lot of the people that were in the show in the first place, and it's just so well done. And yeah, I was kind of right at the prime for when the show came out. I think it came out in 1998. So the first season feels very, very 90s, just the way it's, I mean, edited, and they, do it's like breaking the third wall or whatever. People like talk to the camera, which they stopped doing, I think, after season 1. But it definitely has a very 90s vibe to it, which is great since it came on at the tail end of the 90s.
Yeah, classic spiked hair that Tim had.
Yes.
I love that.
And then the tongue ring
when it
was oh man. And
God. I remember, so this is kind of not related exactly, but when I was in college, I was on the crew team. But it was like a rec, thing, not like a full blown like D1 team or whatever. So it was just kind of like a fun thing to do. So we had to drive ourselves everywhere because we like had no money. So we would, drive to the regattas and races in somebody's like old crappy car. And I remember having to drive for 8 hours or something like that with a couple in the back seat, and the guy had a tongue ring, and the whole time we were driving he could not stop like running it along his teeth, clicking it. So it was like 8 hours of listening to somebody in their tongue ring on their teeth. It's like, oh, this is oh my God. I'm like, can you please, and I was, young, and I'm sure I was like, it's fine, or he didn't say anything, but now I'd be like, oh my God, when we get to the next gas station, you're getting out of this car, so you're driving me nuts. Oh my God, that clicking, please stop, or I'll rip that
oh my God,
out of your mouth. Yeah,
that's awful.
So, but yes, tongue rings were the thing. Yep, tongue rings. Ugh, that's just seems like an infection waiting to happen. But that's for another time.
I'd be too afraid to swallow. Like I always hear so many people like end up swallowing the ring and everything, just whether it's in their sleep or they're eating something and it like comes loose, and I'm like, why?
No.
Like no.
Wow.
Why? I wouldn't. Like no.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I went through a piercing phase. I had my eyebrow was pierced, my nose was pierced. I thought I would, when I was in college, I was like, oh my God, but I would never get my tongue pierced. And just that trip, I will never forget that. The click clack of that for hours and hours made me crazy. So yeah.
That could have turned into what was it, like a 2020 serial killing? Like
yeah, really. The motive was the tongue ring. It's infuriating. I'm sorry. Yeah. But yeah, I think I like the ending of the episode because Carrie, things kind of aren't really going anywhere with Big, and she decides like, I'll just pursue this 20-something guy, like whatever, it's fun, it's it's easy, whatever. And so it seems kind of like, oh, this isn't so bad the night that they kind of hooked up or whatever. And then the morning when she wakes up and the lights are on and the sun's out and she can see that he, I think, sleeps basically like in a bunk bed. And she goes to use the bathroom and there's no toilet paper, and she runs into his roommate who has his shirt off and long hair, kind of messy hair everywhere, and his kitchen is disgusting. And then she has a reality check that maybe 20 somethings are not where I need to be.
I couldn't even imagine like that situation. I don't know about you guys, but I myself, when I go into like a public bathroom, before I even like sit down, I'm always checking to make sure that there's toilet paper or whatever, to be able to make sure, because I just that's one of those like anxiety fears and everything, is being stuck without and not, and then like, oh, I used the last of it for the coffee. What?
Why is that even a thing?
Yes, just so gross. But based on my last boyfriend's apartment in college, I could very well see that happening because there was no toilet paper, so it must have been used for something. Maybe it was a
Oh
coffee filter.
man.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, I always joke that my like life advice is just that about the toilet paper. Like before, if I ever write a book on like words of wisdom or something, which one of them would be before you ever commit to a bathroom stall, make sure that there's toilet paper because
Oh yeah.
that's
Amount of
important.
amount of times that's happened, unfortunately. And it's like, no, why didn't I check?
Right. Or
And then
then somebody. Go ahead.
when you don't check and there isn't any, there's nobody else in the bathroom to be able to assist or
Bend
anything.
me over.
Right. Well, then it's awkward if you're the person next to the person who didn't have toilet paper, then they reach their hand underneath and ask you for some, and you don't even know who that person is, but
Oh
you
my
feel
God.
bad for them. It's a whole thing. It's just awful.
Mm.
And yeah. So maybe that should be like something that gets posted in public restrooms or something, like, word of advice, don't commit until you check for some toilet paper. Yeah.
Oh.
And if your boyfriend doesn't have toilet paper in his apartment, then
Probably not going to work
it's
out.
time to end it.
Yeah.
Time to
He's
end
got to
it.
go. He's got to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and we'll touch on this a little bit more when we get into the second episode on your podcast too. But what were your guys' takes on the outfits in Sex and the City? Because I know that was
Mm.
even though I didn't ever really watch it, I know that was one of the huge things was the fashion in Sex and the City. And so I mean this maybe because most of this episode had taken place more at night, it was kind of a little harder to see, but those coats did look comfy. That's for sure.
Mhm. Yes, a lot of overcoats. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm certainly not somebody who's very I mean, I look pretty glamorous right now. So I think it's pretty obvious that I have like a really good taste in clothes. But no, I think at the time, people, that was, I think, part of the appeal of the show was their, fashions and always having Jimmy Choo shoes. I think that brought that company out into the forefront of, women's designer shoes. So I think that was certainly a draw for people to watch the show. But then I think it was also part of the criticism because I think a lot of people felt like realistically, if you look at Carrie's job, she, writes for a newspaper or whatever, just a contributor for like an article or whatever. So how much money could she really have made? Would she really have been able to afford, Jimmy Choo shoes and all the clothing she had in her closet, which, I don't have not much of a frame of reference for that, but I think it was kind of part of its appeal, but part of its criticism. But also, I mean, if she wasn't making that much as a writer, I don't know how she afforded to smoke, that was really weird. I kind of forgot about that aspect of it, of the show, is that she is a smoker off and on in the show, which is just like so weird to see because that's just, I never see anything with anybody smoking anymore. But then again, I'm a parent, so I watched like, Power Rangers and Winnie the Pooh, so I'm not really seeing anybody smoking, but it's just, that was really weird to see. And then at the same time, I think when that show was on, I unfortunately was a smoker too. I was which is just hard to believe. So I think that was part of why I liked it too, because it's like, oh yeah, cool, like woman who smokes. See, it's like not that big of a deal. Meanwhile, like
Right.
it's disgusting. Meanwhile, it's back in the ranch, it's disgusting, and it was really hard for me to quit. And thank God I did. And now it's been an extremely long time. But yeah, it's just so weird to see somebody smoking, and she's in all these fancy clothes and is smoking and sitting in her apartment in a nice area and stuff, smoking on her bed and just a very odd concept.
Out of curiosity, is there any episodes where like she sets her apartment on fire from smoking in it?
I don't think so, but that would have been a very important lesson, I think, for the viewers to see if
Yeah.
Right.
the cause and effect of smoking, what the damage you can do. No, I know there was definitely a lot of episodes I think of with her quitting and have her friends trying to get her to quit and stuff like that. I think it's kind of something that she struggles with as the show carries on. But yeah, I mean, she's around all those newspapers and stuff because she's in the newspaper. I mean, that is just
Right.
like, a fire waiting to happen.
Yeah.
I can't believe that she, and all those drunken nights out in the club or whatever. And, it's amazing that something didn't burn down. It's really unfortunate.
Now, did you feel like you had a favorite character from the show? Like, was there anyone that you resonated with more at all?
That's a good question. Probably, I think ultimately I would probably say Miranda, just because she's a little bit hugely sarcastic, which is a good thing and a bad thing. And she's very, she wasn't as like, as sort of like she's a bit different than the other women of the group, not like super fashion conscious and doesn't have this very prestigious career because Miranda's a lawyer. So I could just relate to her from just being like very matter of fact, telling people sort of like it is, but also having it, doing it the whole time with a sense of humor. But like Samantha, I could, certainly not relate to at all. Although Kim Cattrall, that's her name. She does such a great job playing her.
Amazing.
Yeah. But how about you? How about you two? Any character that you feel like you can relate to?
Um, what was the okay, so there was Miranda, there's Samantha, there was Carrie. What was the other one's name?
Charlotte.
Charlotte. I think her
Charlotte.
probably for
Yeah.
me personally, yeah. She just seemed kind of a little bit more my speed, more of a kind of, I don't know, almost kind of like a Midwest girl,
Yeah.
in a sense. And so that kind of just the two episodes we watched and everything, that's who I already kind of immediately was like, that's who I'm drawn to.
Yeah, I think probably everyone wanted to be Carrie, but
Yeah.
I didn't really watch the show like April growing up. That wasn't something I watched. For some reason, I don't even know why I decided to watch the movie. And then it kind of like sparked my interest and I started watching some of the episodes. But I would have to say I'm kind of a mix between Miranda and Charlotte. I feel like kind of a combination of all the things, basically what both of you said about them. That's kind of how I feel like I would gravitate more towards, but definitely not
Yeah.
Carrie or Samantha.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I think that the four women in the show, they have, I think, have stayed somewhat like in contact, but for some reason, Kim Cattrall's kind of been kind of on the outs with them. And not that I really get into celebrity gossip or anything like that, but it's really kind of unfortunate because they're just such a great foursome. And I think they've done a movie recently. I think she like wasn't even in it or something. I'm not sure how they worked that out or wrote her off of the show.
Oh yeah, the reboot that they have going on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really unfortunate. But yeah, I think that, people always could kind of, I think that again, that was part of the show's appeal too, because I think people saw themselves in, each one of those women for whatever reason. And it is amazing how much having that group of friends, standing by your side through so much stuff. And that's kind of what happens with them. I think, at one point Miranda's mother passes away and Samantha ends up kind of coming to help her in this unexpected way. They just have this like beautiful friendship. And I have a group of friends kind of not really like them, but kind of like them, I guess, that are just so easy to be around them and, laughing and talking and, going to them when we need something. So I think people could relate to, the characters themselves. And then just having that kind of group of, girlfriends is just so, can be so comforting. So
Well, I think what's nice about the show is that it was focused on women, like very hardworking, powerful type women that had their career, but they also had this really fun life that they lived, and they had their friends around them. And it wasn't a male dominated show. Like, I feel like there's just so many of those. And that's what I think Sex and the City was able to kind of do something different and kind of get out of that box. And I personally think that's why so many women gravitated towards that. And if I would have been at like the ripe age during when it came out, I definitely probably would have watched it. But unfortunately, I was only 10, so I don't think it would have sat too well with me. But
yeah,
I'm glad I get to now appreciate it later on in life.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's no, so many TV shows, it's the central characters are a couple, it's like that's the main, or the will they, won't they, or, is always at the center of stuff. So yeah, I think that's a really great point that there were 4 independent women that could rely on each other. They didn't need to rely on a guy with no toilet paper to come and rescue them. Which I think is another great message too. Because I know that for a lot of women, especially heterosexual women, I feel like there's a pressure that like you should get married. And then once you do get married, every 2 seconds you're asked like, when are you going to have children? Which is really, such an invasive, inappropriate question. That's really none of anybody's business. So I think that resonated with people is just, yeah, like women can have fun and go out and hang out with their friends, and it's fine. And you can be 35 and not be married, and that's okay, because just because you're a certain age doesn't mean you need to whatever. And I don't know why we do that to women, especially. I find that kind of infuriating, actually, and I don't even have that pressure, but I know I have friends that do, and it's just really frustrating. So they kind of made it okay to be a single woman who's, not 20, and that's okay.
I completely agree on that. I mean, it's something that watching the show, the episodes we watched and everything, it really did make it. I do see why so many women love this show.
Yeah.
And that resonates as now being an adult and being at the age that they were portraying. And so that's very, very understandable. Like now I get the whole craze with it. Because obviously, I mean, Ashley was 10, I was 7 at the time when it came out. So there was no way in hell that, like, number one, my parents would even like be okay with me watching something that had the word sex in the title, but which is understandable. I mean, I'm 7, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, really.
So I did enjoy this episode. I thought it was a very entertaining episode, and yeah.
Did anyone catch the line in the episode that I just kind of thought was funny? Was about where it was like Banana Republic said, "This isn't the Gap."
Oh yes.
Yes.
I thought it was hysterical.
Yeah.
That
So many relevant jokes from 90s jokes. Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
we'll be lucky if the
yes.
Gap is around for 5 more years, if that. I mean, my God,
Yeah,
crazy.
that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny where you're talking about like your parents with like them, not wanting you to watch stuff inappropriate, which is totally understandable. I don't know what your parents did to try to prevent that, but a lot of times my mom, if she came in and saw something that, is not appropriate for us to be watching, she would just like stand in front of the TV.
Oh my God.
That's funny.
Like a crossing guard. It's like, why don't you just turn it off? Yeah. Or like, I think the show was perfectly timed for college. My sister and I were like college age, end of high school, during the show's run. So I think we were just, just had so much fun watching it. And because I think they were not afraid to like talk about kind of taboo subjects too.
Yeah,
right.
So I think that was part of the appeal too when you're young, is like, this whole different world that's out there with dating and whatever. So I think that was part of why we enjoyed watching it. And I think we watched it so much that I think eventually my sister I think donated her Sex and the City tapes to Goodwill or something, because I think she'd just watched them, had watched the show so many hundreds of times that she's just like, I can't handle this anymore. So I'm just gonna get rid of it,
oh
'cause I'm like,
man,
never gonna watch the show again because I watched it so much. So, but
understandable.
yeah. Yeah, and I think it holds up well too. Just
Mhm.
I mean, not as well as Will and Grace, but I think it still holds up pretty well, and people can relate to it. And again, who they're talking about, and their cordless phones and stuff like that. Things like that are dated, of course.
Yes.
And smoking is like, who smokes anymore? That's certainly dated, but I think people could still relate to the show to stay. And you can watch it on we don't have HBO Max, but I decided to get a free trial so I could
Mm.
rewatch a couple of those in just in a better format, because it doesn't DVDs were not formatted for the widescreen TV. So
Oh.
yeah, so it's easy to watch on HBO Max now, which is nice. Just have to
Mhm.
remember to
Yeah.
cancel that trial so I don't start getting
Oh,
charged
yeah.
for a streaming service
Yes.
that I don't need. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we're kind of counting down on the time here for this round.
Yes.
So we've got that we're going to be continuing this on
Yes.
Amy's podcast. So
Indeed.
be sure to check in and hear our continuation where we talk about another episode of Sex and the City and jump into Friends also. Um,
Yes, it's exciting.
Yay.
yeah,
I can't wait.
So many great shows. Yeah.
same here.